Stay connected to gratitude. Hit the follow button right now and join thousands of listeners tuning in each week. We're the Gratitude Seekers. Come join us. Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Our guest from today is a sober mom, advocate, writer, and certified recovery coach with over 20 years of experience as a communications professional in corporate America. In this episode, we will explore this idea of the mental load of motherhood, the mommy wine culture, and sobriety in general. Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast, Celeste, Yvonne.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
My pleasure. So, let us know a little bit more about you. I only touched upon the main parts, but I would like for us to start this conversation by you telling us more about who you are and what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, oh God, where do I begin? About almost 10 years ago, I became a mom, and I've always wanted to be a mother. It was hard. It was so hard. I didn't have a lot of experience with children going into it. So when I brought my baby home from the hospital, it really felt like the stakes were high with little to no insight going into it about how to do this and how to do it well. So I think a lot of fear and uncertainty crept into me right from the get-go. And I had always been a drinker and enjoyed drinking alcohol, but something changed when I became a mother, in that it was less about using alcohol to have fun and socialize, and became more about using alcohol to cope with all the stressors of this new role as mother. It was such a scary time for me because my baby experienced a lot of colic and acid reflux, and he just was so uncomfortable so much of the time. And I always felt such imposter syndrome that a good mom would know how to handle this. A good mom would be able to ease her baby's needs. And just a lot of fear and anxiety crept into my life because I was afraid people would see me as the imposter I saw myself. I was afraid people would judge me and label me a bad mom. And I wanted nothing more than to be a good mom, the best mom to this new baby. And right around this time, this message of mommy needs wine had really taken off on social media, kind of as a joke, but also as this is really hard. Wine is all we've got, kind of provocation. And so I started drinking. I probably would have drank anyway, but it really felt like I was drinking to ease that tension and stress and struggle I was feeling, and to just take it away for a short period of time where I could feel confident, where I could feel good about this new role I was undertaking. I look back now and I was absolutely starting to show the early signs of postpartum depression and anxiety too. And alcohol, now I know alcohol made all that worse. And it really was just kind of this vicious cycle of I would drink to feel confident and secure. And then I would wake up feeling even worse and even less confident. So I would get through the day so I could drink again and feel confident and secure. And I started to get to this place over the years where I knew I was drinking too much. I knew I was uncomfortable with the direction this was going. And I had realized I've wanted to be a mom my whole life. And here I was just phoning it in, like literally just counting down the hours till I could get my next drink. And it broke my heart because I worked so hard to get here. It made me sad that this wasn't what I had intended or hoped it to be. So, over time and eventually I decided to quit drinking. And in that journey, I have learned how to do and feel the hard things without trying to numb it out. And I've also been able to learn how to grow my confidence naturally and how to connect with my kids in a genuine way, in an authentic way. So much about me and who I am has developed since I quit drinking. But I also really see how much my relationship to my family and my children have grown as a result. And I wanted to share this story. I wanted to show other mothers that there's hope, that if they kind of fell into the alcohol trap, there's a way out, and that these feelings they're feeling right now are not forever feelings. And there is beautiful things that can come and will come when you stop seeking it out at the bottom of a wine glass and you lean in to doing it sober.
Wonderful. Um, where I think that gratitude and your work intertwine is in relation to us actually feeling our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course we can always choose gratitude, and it's always helpful to do so, but aside from gratitude we do have many other emotions, we do have many other things that we're going through, and they need to be expressed as well, they need to be felt as well, because even if we try to run in different ways, we still need to give them the necessary time so that we will be able to experience more gratitude. So I'm curious, how did you find the motivation first, and how did you actually get to take the necessary steps to become sober?
What led me to my sobriety initially was fear. Fear of what could happen or will happen if I keep going down this direction. Fear of what this could or would look like with my relationships with my loved ones, with my health, with my mental health. I mean, all these things. And so the day that I quit drinking was a day that I had a panic attack. And it really kind of just scared me straight, to the point where I was like, is this how I want to live? Is this the lifestyle I choose at what cost? So that was kind of what shook me to start my day one. And what really led me in those early months was fear driven. But you can't have a sustainable sobriety fear driven. What keeps me sober and what has helped me build a relationship with my sobriety that feels like one of abundance is through gratitude, but it's also through self-care, always educating myself, staying consistent on learning how alcohol works and what it does to our bodies, developing relationships with a community of other women in recovery. These are all the things that has helped me build emotional sobriety, where, it wasn't just about not drinking alcohol, but building a life where I don't need alcohol to live, to cope. So all those things have kind of come together over time to put me in this place where I do live a life that is fortified in gratitude and in reflection. And that took time. Like, that does not come overnight. I think in addiction, or for anybody who is drinking or using drugs to escape, it really is the opposite of gratitude in so many ways, because you can't feel or connect at the level that gratitude exists on. You could say it's very superficial. You could have gratitude and feel gratitude, but it's really at the surface level. You don't get the genuine feelings of deep satisfaction and deep gratitude that can only come when you exist in your body, and when you are steady in your body, and when you're not escaping regularly. So my journey, my sober journey, has gotten me here, but it's taken a long time, and it has absolutely evolved from what it looked like in the beginning to what it is now, in the best way. Which is why, when I talk to people who are in new sobriety and they're in their first 30 days, I have to remind them that this is a journey. This is the way you're feeling right now is not how this is always going to feel. It's a process, and you have to lean in to the long run to feel the genuine benefits that come through this process.
Exactly. That makes so much sense. And I love what you just mentioned regarding feeling that deep gratitude and not just feeling it on the surface. It's really, really different kind of experience when you get to have that depth when it comes to gratitude. And I'm curious, if you remember, when was the first time that you had that experience when you could see the difference between like the surface gratitude and really deep gratitude?
So I think it was when I first started to realize that my sobriety wasn't a punishment, but a gift. And that took a long time. I mean, we're talking 10 or 11 months of my sober journey. And I remember a very defining moment for me, which was I was on a thread online with other female writers, and somebody said, let's do a shout out thread and celebrate something that we're doing. And it could be big or small, but something we're proud of. And I'm looking at these people's shout outs and I'm thinking, I don't have anything. And then one of the writers, the female writers, who's a friend of mine, she posted, I'm 6 weeks sober and I feel amazing. I am so proud of myself. I've worked so hard to get here. I was 10 or 11 months sober at that time. And there was like a light switch moment in my brain where I was like, oh my God, this is something I can be proud of. And it sounds so obvious to me now, but at the time, so much of my sobriety was rooted in shame, in self-hate, in frustration that I can no longer do this thing that I felt like I had lost the keys for, where everybody else has the keys to this thing, and I no longer get to hold those keys. And to hear her reflect on it as a source of beauty in her life, accomplishment, resourcefulness, it really, it truly did a 180 on my brain and made me think, actually, this is really cool. This is really amazing. Like, I can't believe I have gotten this far, and look what's come out of it. I feel like kind of an avalanche of emotion just flew through me that day, where I was like, and look what's come out of it. My relationships, my health, my anxiety's gone down. I'm exercising and I've never felt better. I feel more connected to my children than I've ever felt before. Like it just kept this feeling of abundance just was coming through me in that way that you can only genuinely feel when you are deeply connected to gratitude. And that was such a defining moment for me in my sobriety, but in my life in general, because it's what changed my thought process from I have to do this to I get to do this.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what I love most about this is that it's at least it's inspired me to think about the things that I have accomplished that I could feel grateful for, because it's something that we forget to do. Like you said, we tend to feel ashamed by some of the things that we are doing or that we are doing wrong, or we tend to be quite critical with ourselves. But the beauty of what you just mentioned is the feeling, the appreciation for the work that we've put into something, and the fact that we were able to accomplish something. And usually we expect this from the outside, from other people, but isn't it amazing to be able to give this to yourself? I think it's just wonderful.
I think it's such a perfect example of how we can experience gratitude at a deeper level without even changing a single thing we're doing. That it can be as simple as a mind shift, and how powerful that mind shift can be in changing the course of your life. Like my life has never been the same since that mental shift happened, where I decided that that sobriety was not deprivation, it was liberation. And that I have freedom now in a way that I could never have had before. And nothing physically changed that day. You know, my life stayed the same. Nothing around me had changed. It was all inside. It was all in my head.
I love that. Yeah, it's been my experience as well with gratitude, and I thought it was fascinating how nothing could change on the outside, and I could just see everything differently and appreciate everything on a deeper level. And uh, it's just been a fascination for me for many years to come from that moment. And yeah, I love the fact that you shared this with us, and I'm sure that for our listeners, you could think of a moment, something that you are proud of, something that you're grateful for, that you were able to do or to overcome. And it can be something really small for you or insignificant, but it can be actually something quite big when you look at it from a different point of view. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned at one point, you mentioned self-care. How does self-care look for you?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception in so many ways about what self-care is or what it looks like. And it's a really important conversation to have, especially if you're a mother of young kids or a parent of young kids, because the opportunity to give yourself the gift of that time, whatever your self-care looks like, can be especially hard. But there are ways to approach self-care that doesn't necessarily look like, bubble baths or pedicures, which is the stereotypical way we generally look at self-care. What I have learned through my journey and through reading books about self-care is that self-care can look like setting boundaries in your home, in your relationships. I've had to set boundaries in my sobriety that are a means of self-care. And for me, what that looks like in my recovery journey is telling my partner that I want to take my own car to a party because I want to be able to leave earlier if I feel the need to do so. So that would be kind of a boundary I set that, I am not going to stick out a social gathering or event that makes me uncomfortable. I will, if it gets uncomfortable, if it gets to a place where I'm not feeling good about it, I will leave. So that's one example. You can set boundaries with your children that, what I tell them, like, is if you say hurtful things to me, I will walk away. So just kind of setting the expectation that if you do this, I do this, and kind of learning what boundaries really mean. And it's understanding what that definition is and how to approach it in your day-to-day life. That has been really transformative for me in my own self-care process. Also, I will say what you do for self-care absolutely changes in sobriety too, because you're really relearning who you are and what makes you click. I have learned so much about who I genuinely am when alcohol's off the table, about that I'm an introvert, stuff like that, things that never would have occurred to me. So my self-care, whereas in my drinking days, self-care might have looked like having a drink at home or meeting up with friends for drinks, self-care for me now looks like getting quiet time to read in bed, or getting to get a weekly run in. I mean, these are things I do now, and it feels like something that is feeding me, nourishing me, at whatever that might look like. And it's going to be different for everybody. But those are the examples of what I do for self-care. My sober community is a form of self-care. My therapy is self-care. And then, the less exciting things like regular visits to the dentist, seeing the doctor, doing those kinds of things. Those are all forms of self-care as a means of taking care of myself. And it's, like I said, it's changed over time, and it will continue to change as my needs and my life around me changes. But right now, those are a few examples of some of the things I do for self-care.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciate about you is the fact that I feel you're very self-aware. And I think this is actually one of the first, most important steps in creating self-care routines that make sense for you. Because, like you said, they can change throughout life quite a lot, because what felt like self-care at a certain age might look totally different at another age. And that's why it's important to be as self-aware as possible, to realize what that means. But one principle I love that you mentioned this is setting boundaries, and that I think is something that we need to think about in our day-to-day life in general, because this too looks very different in different times of our life, and especially when we are the type of people that want to be good people, that want to please other people that want to be there for everyone and take care of everyone. And this is the funny, not so much actually, situation that uh, these people that care too much, that uh, think about other people too much, and are always open to helping, get to be burned out, get to be
Oh, yes.
focusing on different kinds of habits that help with coping with that um, generosity, let's say. And it can be really hard to do that. How were you able to start with this setting of boundaries?
It's so hard to do, especially if you're a parent, because there is this societally, we make parents and specifically mothers out to be like a good mother is a martyr. A good parent is a martyr. A good parent meets their child's needs wherever, whenever they are, regardless of where that parent is and what that parent needs. And it's such a, I think it's looking at parenting the wrong way. What I've learned in my sobriety, I lived off that principle. Like, I will just take care of everybody and I'm not as important. I just, my kids are what matters. And I will just, I will give up a piece of myself or all of myself to take care of them. And in my sobriety, I have learned that I have to care for myself first. That if I'm not healthy, I can't take care of them to the best of my ability. So really, it sounds illogical, but to be the best caretaker, you have to start with you. And I think that transformation alone, where I try to meet my needs first, I put my oxygen mask on first before I meet the needs of my children, is something, again, that in addiction and in my drinking journey, I just never quite understood. It felt easier to just trudge along and just kind of give pieces of myself to them and just see and feel my energy tank deplete to the point where I just had nothing left. And burnout was real, just an emotional unavailability. I mean, so many consequences of living your life that way. But it's something that I really had to learn. It felt like I was starting from scratch because I had such a long relationship with alcohol. And, even when I wasn't drinking extensively, it was always a part of my life where I was at least drinking a couple times a week. So to relearn how to meet my needs and what those needs even are, felt like in a lot of ways, I was a child again, relearning how my body talks to me, how to listen to my body, and then how to respond to my body and its needs. And it sounds so simple. It sounds like something that, somebody who is 8 years old can pick up. And yet I think about how many adults I know who don't know how to listen to their own bodies. We lose sight of that as we feel or as we see more important things that take up our energy, that take up our attention. And it really does come back down to starting from scratch and figuring out, what is my body trying to tell me? What does my body need right now? And relearning how to trust and communicate within yourself is the starting point of what will eventually be, yes, a life where you live with self-awareness and you respond and you trust your body and you love your body. I mean, these are all the things that that just takes so much time to get to. I'll never forget, when I was drinking too much and I saw a friend, or I heard a friend say something to the effect of, I knew something was wrong when I woke up because my body didn't feel right. And I remember thinking, what would that feel like? Because my body woke up not feeling right every day because I was drinking every night. And so every morning I felt awful and disgusting and in pain. And I just couldn't imagine waking up and feeling that way and asking my body or questioning why my body was feeling that way, because I knew every day why my body was feeling that way. So to be able to intuit what my body was trying to say to me every day just felt so foreign to me. And it's something that I have been able to learn on this journey that feels really empowering. And I'm genuinely grateful for it.
Yeah, definitely. And you've touched upon something really, really deep there. And I think it's actually the first thing that we tend to do continually. So I'm a big believer in the power of habits. And we do so many things, and it's not just about the things we do, actually, it's about how we think. The fact that we think habitually in a certain way, of course, that leads to certain results in time. And whenever we have all kinds of responsibilities, especially as parents, um, I think we lose touch with our bodies and with our own needs, because we keep thinking to ourselves that that's not important. What's important is that, you're taking care of the children, you're taking care of the duties, you're taking care of many other things. And we learn this as a habit, not to pay attention to our own needs, to uh, the things that we feel in our body. It's like, it's not that we're not aware that much. Actually, I think we are aware, but it just doesn't matter. It's not important. There are so many other things that require our attention and our time and our energy, that it's just not important, when in fact that's very important. And when we do this for a few years, of many of us for too many years, we get to a point where we realize that it is important. And our body is like, okay, it's stopping us one way or another, and it's telling us, it's actually, I am important,
Right.
and if you want to continue to take care of everyone else and to do all of the things that you want and need to do, you need to take care of me as well. And not just the body, but this is a really good example, something that we can see visually, and that we can imagine more accurately. So yeah, I think this idea of importance and of everyone else being more important is a very powerful one that I think we need to look at uh, before trying to do things differently. I don't
I
know
think
what's your take on this.
I always envisioned a good parent as selfless. And
Mhm.
because what's the opposite of selfless? It's selfish, right? And no
Yeah,
parent wants to be selfish. But now I think I look at it differently. If we looked at it as the opposite of selfish is self-aware, I think it's such an important tool to be teaching our children is, how to be self-aware. And that is something, we're always working with them on. Like, is your tummy grumbling? That means you're hungry. Are your eyes heavy? That means you're tired. I mean, this is stuff we work with our kids on all the time. And yet we become so distanced from our own feelings, or we ignore them, right? I mean, how many times have we felt tired and we're like, you know what, I'm just going to stay up because this is my time. And this is the only chance I have to, scroll social media or read my book. So we ignore our body's feelings, even as we're trying to teach our children how to listen to theirs. I think back when I was drinking and I was thinking to myself, is this a life I would ever want for my children? And of course, the answer was no. And yet, this is what I was showing them every day about how to cope in life, how to cope in adulthood, how to cope in parenting. This is the life I was showing them by example. And if it's not good enough for them, why would it be good enough for me? So when I think about, what I want my children to learn from me, what I want my children to learn when they go out into the world, when they're adults, I want them to be self-aware. I want them to recognize their body's language and its cues and be able to meet its needs, physically and mentally, right? I want them to have healthy emotional responses and be able to communicate those needs and know what to do when they feel those things. And I can't really teach it if I'm not also showing it by example too. And so by me living a life where I'm self-aware, I can lead by example. I can show them what that looks like. And I can show them, that when we are riding the wave of our emotions, good and bad, it's normal. This is what it looks like. This is how it feels. And this is how I, as their mother, cope with these things without drugs and alcohol, and how maybe this is something that you can look towards to put as tools in your toolkit.
Exactly. And what I love most about this is that it comes from the same place, from the same place of love, from the same place of wanting what's best for the children and for all of the people around you. And it looks different. It could be interpreted in a different way from some points of view. But if we think about it in the long run, it's actually the right path to take. Because, like you said, we teach a lot by example. And this is just not just for the children, but for all of the people around us. When they see us do some things, uh, they start thinking about doing those kinds of things as well, whether they are good or not. It's like, okay, she's drinking each evening. Maybe I should try that too. Maybe it's helpful, But when you know that that person is finding a more healthy way of coping, of doing self-care, well, it's inspiring for other people to think about that way of doing things as well. And we influence each other whether we are aware of it or not. And doing this for ourselves could be just the kind of influence that we would want for the people that we love, isn't it?
Absolutely. Our kids are very intuitive. They can recognize the difference between alcohol and non-alcoholic drinks as early as age 3. And they read and play off our emotions every day. That's why we often say parents set the emotional tone in a household, because they feed off that energy, whatever it is, whether it's positive energy or negative energy, they feed off it, which is why, when they say, when the parent's in a bad mood, it kind of just lays it out for the rest of the family. So they're so in tune. They're seeing everything we're doing. They are subconsciously or consciously picking up on tips and tricks on how to live and survive from their parents. So what do we want to show them? What do we want to teach them? What kind of energy do we want to present in our households for them to feed off? Because that emotional energy is powerful and it can have such strong implications either way. When I, was showing them that mommy drank alcohol to cope, it impacted everything, and not just the message I was sending, but the emotions that I was exuding. They could probably feel the distance that was coming between us, not necessarily physically, but in every other sense, as I started to kind of numb out after a couple drinks. And that emotional tone that I was setting in the house wasn't one of joy or gratitude or of feeling self-assured or feeling strong. It was the opposite. It was weakness. It was fake feelings. It was, chemically induced emotions. And it was kind of a roller coaster ride, because as my dopamine would go up with my first drink, I might be in kind of a euphoric state. And then when it dropped 30, 40, 50 minutes later, I was cranky. I was moody. I was triggered by everything. So I'm not even showing them a sense of security or predictability. In my drinking. I was giving them kind of this roller coaster ride where they are learning, mom's all over the place. Mom is happy one minute and really angry the next minute. And they are picking up these cues and they are making mental notes, even when they're not physically able to express themselves or explain it. It's all impacting them. And, I think back on how I was correlating and showing them that mom drank wine nightly. Even just that in of itself was sending a message I would never wish on them. And I would never want for them. So there's just so many things that I now know that I didn't know before, and I give myself so much grace because I did not understand this. I did not know the scientific effects of alcohol back then. I genuinely thought I was doing this to survive. It was a survival mechanism. And knowing what I now know, I can come into this saying, I have better ways to survive. I have healthier ways to survive and thrive in my parenthood journey and in my own life. That is not just healthier for me, but it's a lot healthier for my children as well.
Exactly. As to give an example of two extremes, when you think about a person that's always complaining, and when you compare that to a person that's grateful, it's a whole nother story when you live with these two different types of people. It makes you see the world in a different way. It makes you experience life in a different way. And I believe that this is a gift that you're offering your children, the fact that you are choosing to be different in a better way, and to make sure that you are aware of your feelings, of your needs, of the care that you need to offer yourself, and they're definitely gonna pick that up. So We are nearing the end of our time together, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about your book. If you could tell us a few ideas about it and where can our audience get it?
Yeah. So my book is called It's Not About the Wine, The Loaded Truth Behind Mommy Wine Culture. And I wrote this book to help mothers, but really anyone who feels stuck in the alcohol trap. A lot more women are drinking than ever. And the stats are showing some pretty alarming numbers of heavy drinking use for women, especially since the pandemic. And my book is really an exploration of why do so many parents drink to cope with the challenges of parenting, and then how to get out of the alcohol trap if you have gotten yourself stuck in it. So I really hope that this book helps people recognize that giving up alcohol is truly the opposite of giving up. And that when you quit drinking, if you were stuck in kind of this uncomfortable place with your drinking, that it doesn't feel like deprivation. And it doesn't have to feel like deprivation, because in every sense, it is a form of liberation. So those are kind of the messages I convey in my book through my story, through other people's stories, and then just a lot of research on how do we get out of the trap? How do we cope with parenting without a numbing agent, and what that can look like? And you can find it anywhere books are sold. It's available in the United States right now, and then eventually it'll be available internationally.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us, for showing so much compassion towards all the people that are going through this, towards yourself as well, and being so self-aware and honest about your feelings and what you went through. It's always really refreshing to hear this, and about your journey as well with gratitude and reaching gratitude on a deep level. And by the way, what are some of the things that you're grateful for right now?
Well, I am and probably always will be grateful for my sobriety, because I wouldn't be here without it. But I'm just grateful for my children and my husband and my family. I'm grateful for my health. I took that for granted for a long time, and now I don't. And I'm grateful for my my self-care. I am an active runner, and I like to exercise. I like to move my body, and the way I take care of myself has really, it is such a priority for me now. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I care so much about my body now, and I want to see it thrive in a way that I think I took for granted for a long time.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love this idea, and I think it's the best way to end this interview. And I'm sure that it will be a great idea to ponder on for our listeners. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was so nice to have this conversation with you.
Hey, Gratitude Seeker, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this interview. I really appreciate it. And if you could think of one person that would also benefit from it, share it with them. It might actually be the inspiration that they need to make their day or maybe even their life much better. Thank you so much once again. This has been Georgian Benta. Don't forget to keep seeking and spreading gratitude.